The conference room air still hummed with the aggressive silence that follows a deal. My temples throbbed at a dull, familiar rhythm. Another venture capital firm. Another 8-figure term sheet negotiated down to the last stock option. I was Tiffany Monroe, and I had just secured the future of my company, Next Tech, for another 3 years. My CFO, Mark, clapped me on the shoulder as the elevator descended. Brilliant. Tiff. Ruthless. They never saw you coming. They never do, I said, my smile feeling practiced. The polished lobby of the Manhattan skyscraper blurred into the cacophony of Fifth Avenue. My driver, Henry, stood by the open door of the town car. Home, Ms. Monroe? I glanced at my watch. 8:17 p.m. The thought of the empty, sleek penthouse overlooking Central Park felt like another boardroom. Impressive and cold. No, Henry, take me to the grotto. In Brooklyn. And I'll need you to lose the car and the suit. Just be nearby. An hour later, I was a different person. The tailored Alexander Wang sheath was stuffed in my tote, replaced by a soft cashmere sweater and jeans I'd bought off the rack. My diamond studs were tucked away. I sat at the worn wooden bar of the grotto, a cozy wine bar in Cobble Hill I'd loved in my pre-funding days. Swirling a glass of Malbec, I was deliberately not letting myself think about the price of. I was just Tiffany, anonymous, normal. That's when he walked in. He had that effortless Brooklyn look, dark jeans, a well-fitted flannel over a gray tee, scuffed boots. His smile was easy, directed at the bartender. Then, scanning the room, it landed on me. Not a predatory scan, but a curious one. I looked down, a flush I hadn't felt in years, warming my neck. Rough day? His voice was smooth. Warmer than I expected. I looked up. His eyes were a disarming shade of green. Is it that obvious? You're dissecting that glass of wine like it just presented a bad quarterly report. He slid onto the stool next to me. Jake, Tiffany. So, Tiffany, what brings a woman who looks like she should be ordering complicated cocktails at a rooftop lounge to a neighborhood hole-in-the-wall on a Tuesday? Because the rooftop lounges are where I work, I thought. I like the wine and the quiet. No one bothers you here. I'm bothering you, he said, not moving. A little, I said, and found myself smiling. But it's okay. He ordered a beer. We talked, not about IPOs or market saturation, but about the best slice of pizza in the city. He was vehemently de-Ferraz. I argued for Joe's on Carmine. The unbearable heat in the L train in summer. The new series everyone was binge-watching. It was shockingly, deliciously mundane. His laugh was genuine. He was a marketing manager for a mid-sized sports apparel brand. He talked about his team, his annoying but brilliant boss, his dream of heading a department. It's about building something real. You know, he said, leaning in, not just chasing a bonus. Actual, tangible impact. I nodded, my throat tight. That's what I told myself when I founded Next Tech in my Stanford dorm room. That's rare. What about you? Let me guess, graphic designer? Teacher? You have a patient look about you. I almost choked on my wine. Office admin. I said, the first job title that popped into my head from a lifetime ago. For a small consulting firm. Very small. Barely a firm. Really. Ah, the grind. Respect. He took a swig of his beer. My last girlfriend, well, let's just say her career was her entire personality. High finance. Every conversation was a subtle audit. Couldn't just enjoy a movie without her calculating the production budget versus box office returns. He shook his head, a bitter twist to his mouth. It gets old. The constant performance. The need for the next status symbol. I just want something real. Someone who knows the value of a dollar. You know, not just how to spend 6 figures on a handbag. The comment hit me like a physical blow. He wasn't just making conversation. He was laying out a worldview. A world where my real life, the mergers. The handbags I actually did own, but never used. The penthouse was the enemy. The very thing that made me, in his eyes, undesirable. A gold digger by proxy of simply having gold. The bartender placed a small bowl of olives between us. Jake popped one in his mouth. So, office admin. That's a tough gig. Long hours. No respect. Crap pay. It pays the bills. I mumbled, the lie taking root, wrapping around my conscience. Come on, you can tell me. What's the damage? I bet those consultants pay peanuts and call it valuable experience. I looked into my wine glass, the deep red suddenly looking like spilled ink. I wanted to keep talking to him. I wanted this version of me, the unassuming, simple Tiffany, to exist for just one more hour. It's not great. 3,000 a month. Before taxes. The number fell out of my mouth. Small and pathetic. My annual bonus last year was more than 100 times that. Jake let out a low whistle, but it was sympathetic, not mocking. Ouch. Manhattan on that. You must have 5 roommates. Brooklyn. I corrected quickly. A studio. It's cozy. He reached over and covered my hand with his. His palm was warm. Hey, no shame. That's honest work. You're out there doing it. That's more than I can say for a lot of people in this city. His thumb brushed my knuckle. I admire that. Seriously. The touch. The words, they were a drug. After a day of being feared, respected, and negotiated against. Here was a handsome man admiring me, fictional poverty. The guilt was a cold stone in my stomach, but the warmth of his hand was overwhelming it. We talked for 2 more hours. He paid for my wine. I tried to protest, but he insisted. My treat. You can get the next one when you get that big promotion. He said it with such genuine encouragement that I felt a pang of nausea. As we stood to leave, he touched my arm. This was real. Tiffany, I'd like to do it again. No pressure. Just more pizza debates. I'd like that, I said, and for the first time that night, I was telling the complete truth. Outside, the Brooklyn air was cool. He walked me to the corner. Can I call you? He asked. Yes. I gave him my number, my real number, the one only a handful of people had. My personal line. He smiled. That easy, green-eyed smile. Get home safe. Tiffany. He didn't try to kiss me. He just squeezed my hand and turned, walking away with his hands in his pockets. I watched him go, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. Henry materialized at the curb a moment later, the nondescript sedan idling. I slid into the back seat, the familiar scent of leather enveloping me. All good. Ms. Monroe? Yes. Henry, I whispered, staring out the window as the cozy, illuminated bars of Brooklyn gave way to the majestic, cold skyline of Manhattan. It was very good, but as the city lights blurred past, the enormity of what I'd done settled in. I hadn't just omitted details. I had constructed an entire identity, a vulnerable, struggling woman named Tiffany who earned $36,000 a year. Jake had praised her honesty, her simplicity. He'd held her hand, and I, Tiffany Monroe, CEO, had sat there and accepted it. I had created the very thing he claimed to want, and in doing so, had made my real self into the villain of his story before he'd even met her. The lie was out. It had a name, a salary, and a pair of kind green eyes interested in its future, and I had no idea how to take it back. The ping of my personal cell was an intrusion from another universe. I fumbled for it on the nightstand, the dawn light barely slicing through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse. It wasn't the encrypted work phone buzzing with Asia market opens. It was Jake. Good morning. Debating whether a classic New York bagel with lox is superior to avocado toast. Need a tiebreaker. Jake, a stupid, giddy smile broke across my face. I typed back. My thumb's clumsy. Bagel. No contest. The texture. The history. Avocado toast is a coastal cliché. Knew I liked you. Coffee later? I know a place near your cozy studio. Jake. I stared at the word cozy. My lie. Now the foundation of a planned date. Can't. Work day. Deadlines that I typed. It was true. I had a 9 a.m. with legal and a noon board call. An admin with deadlines. They're working you hard. Tonight? My schedule was clear after 7 p.m. Unless the board call blew up. Tonight works. A man with a plan. I'll text you the address. Prepare for the best grilled cheese you've ever had. I put the phone down, the cool glass against my palm. A grilled cheese date. My last date was a charity gala where I discussed semiconductor tariffs with a senator. The day was a schizophrenic blur. In my corner office at Nextech's Soho headquarters, I was Ms. Monroe, sharp, decisive, moving millions with a nod. The Singapore terms are non-negotiable. David, I said into the speakerphone, pacing before the glass wall. If they balk at the data sovereignty clause, walk. We have other bids. My CFO, Mark, gave me a thumbs up from the conference table. My personal phone buzzed in my pocket, still thinking about bagels. And you, 7 p.m., don't eat lunch. During a 5-minute break, I locked myself in my private bathroom, marble, silent, smelling of expensive diffusers, and called my assistant. Claire, I need you to do something off-book. Anything. Tiffany, I need a decoy apartment in Brooklyn, Cobble Hill, or Carroll Gardens. A small studio, furnished, but modestly. Lease it under a shell. Today, there was a beat of silence. Claire was used to unusual requests. Security issue? Personal, I said, my voice tight. Utmost discretion. Keys delivered to me by 5 p.m. Budget is no object. But the apartment, it has to look like it costs $1,200 a month. I'll handle it, she said. No further questions asked. By 6:30 p.m., I was a different person again. Designer clothes and a garment bag in the trunk of Henry's car. Changed into the same jeans and a simple black sweater. The keys to a tiny, blandly charming studio on Wyckoff Street felt like lead in my pocket. My decoy life had a physical address. Jake's place was a dive bar called The Anchor, with sticky floors and the comforting smell of fried food. He was already at a small booth, 2 pints of beer waiting. He stood up, that easy smile in place, and kissed my cheek. The casual intimacy sent a jolt through me. You made it, he said. I was worried your corporate overlords would chain you to the copier. Just barely. I laughed, sliding in. This place is a dump? He finished, grinning. The best kind. No one here is trying to impress anyone. It's honest. He pushed a menu toward me. Grilled cheese with bacon and tomato. Trust me, we ordered. He talked about his day, a frustrating client meeting, a coworker who stole his lunch from the fridge. It was normal. It was heaven. I listened, adding snippets of my fabricated admin life. A demanding boss, confusing spreadsheets, a broken coffee machine. So this consulting firm, he asked, taking a sip of beer, what do they consult on? My mind blanked for a second. Operational efficiency. For nonprofits. Mostly. A safe, boring cover. Noble. He nodded. Better than helping hedge funds get richer. I like that. He reached across the table, his fingers grazing mine. You're different, Tiffany. You're not all polished up and calculating. You're just you. Every word was a barb wrapped in velvet. I am calculating. I calculated $1 billion valuation last week. I just smiled and took a sip of my beer. My work phone, buried deep in my tote, began to vibrate. A specific, persistent pattern. It was Mark. It meant trouble. I ignored it. Everything okay? Jake asked, noticing my brief tension. Just a phantom vibration. Sorry. The phone stopped, then immediately started again. You should get that. Might be important, he said, though his expression tightened slightly. It's just work. They can wait. Must be nice to be that indispensable, he said, a strange edge to his voice. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. Kidding. Seriously. Get it. I don't mind. Excusing myself, I hurried to the grimy bathroom, locking the stall door. Mark, this better be. It's the FTC. He cut in, voice tense. They're fast-tracking the review of the Apex acquisition. There's a new commissioner asking pointed questions about data aggregation. Legal is panicking. We need to prep a statement, and the board wants a crisis call at 9 p.m. sharp. I closed my eyes, leaning my head against the cold metal stall. Fine. Draft the statement. Run it by comms. I'll be on the call. Where are you? Your office line rang out. I'm out. Handling something. I'll be home for the call. I hung up, my pulse racing. The two worlds were colliding already. I splashed water on my face and returned to the booth. Our food had arrived. Trouble in nonprofit operational efficiency paradise? Jake asked lightly, but his eyes were watching me closely. Just a last-minute thing. My boss is intense. I picked up my grilled cheese, the cheese oozing out. I took a bite. It was, objectively, incredible. See? Told you. He watched me eat. You handle stress well. Most people would be bitching nonstop. What's the point? I said, forcing a shrug. You do the work. You go home. It's just a job. He leaned back, appraising me. That's a healthy attitude. A rare one. My dad, he was his job. VP of sales at some tech company. Got laid off last year in a merger. It destroyed him. Still mopes around the house like a ghost. Let it become his entire identity. He shook his head. I vowed never to be that guy. A job pays the bills. Life happens outside of it. The mention of his father, a VP laid off in a merger, sent a fresh chill down my spine. The tech world was small. I'm sorry about your dad. I managed. Don't be. He's a cautionary tale. Jake's tone was firm, almost harsh. He wrapped his whole self-worth up in a title and a corner office. Now he's got nothing. That's not living. That's existing for a paycheck. He took a long pull of his beer. I want a life. A real one. With someone who gets that. He was looking right at me. And in that moment, the lie felt like a fortress. Telling the truth now would make me the embodiment of everything he despised. The merger executing. Title obsessed. Life-sucking executive. I was the villain in his father's story. I get that. I whispered. He smiled, reaching over to wipe a crumb from the corner of my mouth with his thumb. The gesture was so intimate it stole my breath. I know you do. The rest of the date was a blur of laughter and easy conversation. But a clock was ticking in my head. 8:45 p.m. I needed to be in my penthouse, on a secure line. I should probably get going, I said as the check came. Jake grabbed it before I could. Early day tomorrow. Let me walk you home, he said, to your cozy studio. Panic. The studio was empty. Barren. It had no life. No history. It's a mess, I said quickly. Light. Embarrassingly messy. Another time? He studied me. A flicker of something in his eyes. Doubt? Okay. Another time. He walked me to the street corner. I had a really great time. Tiffany. Me too. Jake. He cupped my face in his hands. His touch gentle. Really great. This time. He kissed me. It was soft. Questioning at first. Then deeper. It was a kiss that promised more simplicity, more normality, more of this feeling of being seen for a fiction I'd created. I kissed him back, losing myself in it. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I'll call you tomorrow. I nodded, speechless. He hailed a cab for me, a yellow cab, not a town car. As it pulled away, I watched him through the rear window, a tall figure growing smaller on the Brooklyn sidewalk. The cab had barely turned the corner before I was on my phone. Henry, now, corner of Smith and Livingston. And I need to change in the car. 5 minutes later, in the back of the sedan, I was ripping off the sweater and pulling on a silk blouse and tailored trousers. My fingers flew as I redid my makeup in the dim light. The board call, Ms. Monroe, Henry said, meeting my eyes in the rear view. We have 15 minutes. Step on it. I walked into my penthouse at 8.58, heels clicking on the polished concrete. The panoramic view of the glittering city was a stark contrast to the sticky booth at the Anchor. I poured a glass of water, logged into the secure server, and smoothed my hair just as the video conference screen lit up with the concerned faces of my board. Apologies for the delay, I said, my voice calm, authoritative. All traces of Brooklyn dive bar Tiffany gone. Let's address the FDC's concerns. Mark, run me through the draft statement. For the next hour, I was Tiffany Monroe, CO, strategizing, directing, making sharp decisions. But in the back of my mind, a single, persistent thought played on a loop. The feel of Jake's lips on mine, and the terrifying, exhilarating weight of the secret that now stood between us. The whirlwind had begun, and I was no longer sure I could control where it would land. The next 3 months were a meticulously managed double life. My world split into two distinct, parallel realities, each demanding total commitment. In reality A, I was CEO Tiffany Monroe. My days were a blur of high-stakes meetings, transatlantic calls, and decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions in capital. The FTC issue was contained, but it required constant vigilance. I lived in my penthouse, a minimalist fortress in the sky, and was driven to work in a silent town car. In reality B, I was just Tiffany, Jake's Tiffany. We settled into a rhythm of two, sometimes 3 dates a week, always in Brooklyn, always at low-key places he chose. A noodle shop in Sunset Park, a trivia night at a dive bar, walks across the Brooklyn Bridge. He paid, or we split the check. I learned to carry cash to avoid the awkwardness of my black titanium credit card. My cozy studio on Wyckoff Street became a necessary prop. I'd stop by occasionally, just to leave a jacket, a book, to make it smell lived in. It felt like a movie set, convincing from the outside, utterly hollow inside. The lie became a second skin, but it chafed constantly. One Tuesday evening, we were at a cramped, bustling Italian place in Carroll Gardens, sharing a carafe of house red. Jake was telling a funny story about his sister Chloe's latest disastrous online date. So the guy shows up with his pet iguana leash, named Spartacus. Chloe texts me code green, which is our bailout signal, and I have to call her with a family emergency. He laughed, a warm, easy sound. She's a character. You'll love her. And my mom, Linda, she's a lot, but her heart's in the right place. They sound great, I said, twirling spaghetti on my fork. The mention of his family sent a familiar jolt of anxiety through me. Meeting them was an inevitable step, a deeper layer of commitment to the deception. They are a little nosy, a little judgmental about life choices, but they're family. He took a sip of wine, his expression softening. They'd really like you. Tiff, you're so grounded, real, not like the women I usually brought around. Oh, and what were they like? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. He made a face, high maintenance. One was a corporate lawyer who corrected my grammar over brunch. Another was a gallery curator who spent our entire vacation in Tulum taking photos for her aesthetic. Everything was a transaction, a performance. He reached across the small table and took my hand. You're not like that. You're happy with a grilled cheese and a beer. You don't need a 5-star resort to have a good time. You have, I don't know, substance. His words were a love letter to a ghost. The woman he described was a phantom I'd conjured. The real me had, in fact, stayed at that 5-star resort in Tulum and found the photographer's aesthetic quite compelling. I just think there's more to life than a fancy title and a big bank account. He continued, squeezing my hand. That stuff is hollow. It's people that matter. Connection. Simple pleasures. A buzzing from my tote. My work phone. The specific 3-pulse vibration meant Mark. It was urgent. Sorry, I mumbled, pulling my hand away. It's my boss, probably freaking out about a misplaced decimal point on a spreadsheet. The excuse was thin, but it usually worked. On a Tuesday night, they own you, Jake said, his voice tinged with disapproval. I gave an apologetic shrug and ducked into the narrow, tiled hallway leading to the bathrooms. Mark, what is it? I hissed. The Singapore deal. They're at the table right now, and they're pushing back hard on the IP clause. They want an answer in an hour. Your VP of Biz Dev is ready to fold. I closed my eyes, leaning against the cool tile. I could hear the clatter of plates and Jake's low laugh from the dining room. Two worlds, violently overlapping. Tell them no. The clause stays. It's the bedrock of the whole deal. If they walk, we let them walk. We have the leverage. Mark, use it. They might actually walk. Tiffany, that's a $40 million contract. And without that clause, it's a $40 million liability. Hold the line. I'll be on standby if you need me to jump on a call. I hung up, took a deep breath, and pasted on a smile before returning to the table. Everything okay? Jake asked. His plate was nearly empty. Crisis averted, I said, sitting down. Just a spreadsheet emergency. He shook his head, a wry smile on his lips. See, that's what I mean. You handle their drama with such grace. You don't let it consume you. My dad, when he was at Varatech Systems, he'd bring that stress home every night. The house would be like a tomb. My mom hated it. Varatech Systems. The name was a punch to my gut. It was a mid-tier data analytics firm. Nextech had acquired a smaller competitor last year, which had led to some redundancies and layoffs. My mouth went dry. Varatech, that was the company? I asked, carefully. Yeah, he was a VP there for 15 years. Then last year, some big shot startup swooped in, bought a rival company, and merged them. A bunch of redundant VPs got the axe. My dad was one of them. Jake's tone was flat, bitter. He never saw it coming. Devoted his life to that place. They handed him a box and a severance package and showed him the door. He hasn't been the same since. Says the new CEO is some ruthless wunderkind who only sees balance sheets, not people. The air left my lungs. Nextech hadn't acquired Varatech directly, but our acquisition of their primary competitor, Dataflow, had directly triggered the restructuring that cost his father his job. I was, indirectly, the ruthless wunderkind. The lie wasn't just personal now. It was woven into his family's trauma. That's awful. I managed. My voice barely a whisper. It is what it is, Jake said, signaling for the check. Just proves my point. Don't give your life to a corporation. They'll never love you back. He paid the bill, and we stepped out into the cool spring night. We walked in silence for a block, his hand in mine. The guilt was a physical weight, crushing my chest. I had to tell him. Now, before this went any further. Jake, there's something I need to. He stopped walking, turning to face me under the glow of a street lamp. He looked nervous, earnest. Tiffany, before you say anything, I need to say something first. My confession died on my lips. Okay, these last few months, they've been the best of my life. He began, his green eyes searching mine. I know it's fast. I know people will say we're crazy. But when you know, you know. He let go of my hand and reached into the pocket of his jacket. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't happening. He didn't pull out a ring box. Instead, he pulled out 2 folded pieces of paper. I had this whole speech planned about simplicity and realness. But here, he handed them to me. I unfolded them. They were printouts for 2 tickets. To Rome, economy class, for next month. My mom always said you don't really know someone until you travel with them. He said, a boyish hope in his eyes. I want to know all of you, the real you. Let's get lost in a city where neither of us knows anyone. Just us. No spreadsheets. No bosses. What do you say? It was a grand, romantic gesture, the kind my real self would have found charmingly quaint. But it was a gesture for the fake me. The $3,000 a month me who would be dazzled by a budget airline ticket. The guilt twisted into a painful knot. He was offering me his version of a perfect future, and it was built entirely on my lie. I looked from the tickets to his face, so open and hopeful. If I told the truth now, I wouldn't just be breaking his heart. I'd be confirming every cynical belief he had about people with money, that we were deceptive, that we played games with people's lives. I'd become the caricature he despised. I swallowed the truth, forcing it down into a dark corner of my soul. I smiled, a tremor in my lips. Jake, it's incredible. I'd love to. He whooped, pulling me into a tight embrace, swinging me around. Yes, I was so nervous you'd say it was too much. It's perfect. I whispered into his shoulder, the words tasting like ash. He pulled back, holding my face. There's more, he said, his voice dropping, thick with emotion. Tiffany, you are the most genuine, surprising, beautiful person I've ever met. You've shown me what real connection feels like. He took a deep breath. I'm not asking now, but I'm going to ask soon. I want to marry you. I want this. Us. A simple, real life together. Is that something you could want? The question hung in the night air. It wasn't a proposal, but it was a promise of one. A promise to the fiction I'd created. The whirlwind was no longer around me, it was inside me, tearing me apart. I looked into the eyes of the man I had genuinely come to love, and I made a choice. I would tell him the truth, but not here, not now. I would do it after I met his family. I would come clean in the Hamptons, where the context of his father's job loss might make him understand my initial fear. It was a terrible plan, born of cowardice, but it was the only path I could see. A simple, real life. I repeated, the phrase like a foreign language. I leaned forward and kissed him, pouring every ounce of my conflicted heart into it. It's all I've ever wanted. Jake. It was the biggest lie I'd told yet. And as he kissed me back, under the Brooklyn street lamp with the printouts for our budget Roman holiday crumpled in my hand, I knew the crash when it came would destroy us both. The trip was planned, the proposal was coming, and I was hurtling toward it, my secret growing heavier with every passing day. The tickets to Rome sat on my kitchen counter in the penthouse, a stark, flimsy contrast to the cold granite. They were a symbol of everything that was now terrifyingly real. I had a week before the weekend in the Hamptons, and the pressure was a live wire in my chest. The lie was no longer a casual secret. It was a structural flaw in the foundation of a relationship hurtling toward marriage. I was in the middle of a quarterly earnings call, projecting calm authority to shareholders, when my personal phone lit up with Jake's name. I let it go to voicemail, my fingers tightening around my pen. As soon as I'd delivered the final, confident growth projection and signed off, I retreated to my office and played the message. Hey, you. Mom's officially in full-scale planning mode for the weekend. She's demanding a head count for clams. Yes, clams. It's a whole thing. Call me when you're free from the spreadsheet minds. His voice was warm, amused, normal. I waited until I was in the back of the town car that evening, the partition up, before I called him back. You're alive, he answered. I was starting to think you'd been consumed by a pivot table. Just barely, I said, forcing a lightness into my tone. Clams. Huh. It's a Mitchell family tradition. The first big summer cookout. Dad mans the grill. Mom makes a potato salad that could end wars. And we all stand around shucking clams from the local place. It's very New England wasp, but in a faded, slightly broke kind of way. He chuckled. You'll fit right in. It's all about simple pleasures. Remember? Every time he said that phrase, it felt like a needle. Sounds lovely. I said, what can I bring? Just yourself. And maybe a sturdy pair of shoes for the beach. Oh, and fair warning. My mom might try to give you tips on couponing. She's big on financial prudence since Dad's situation. My stomach turned. I'll keep that in mind. So, his voice softened. Friday after work. I'll pick you up at your place. We'll drive out together. It's about 3 hours with traffic. Panic. Sharp and immediate. He couldn't pick me up at the penthouse. He couldn't see the doorman, the lobby, the private elevator. Actually, I said too quickly, my boss is being a nightmare about a last-minute report. I might have to work late. It would be easier if I just met you there. You could give me the address? There was a beat of silence on the line. A tiny, telling beat. Meeting there? Sure, I guess. It's just, I was looking forward to the drive, singing along to terrible radio with you. I know. Me too, I said, the lie smooth now from practice. But this report, it's a fire drill. I'm really sorry. Okay, he said, the disappointment clear. No problem. I'll text you the address. It's the old, slightly shabby gray house with the blue shutters on Dune Road. You can't miss it. He paused. Tiffany, you're not getting cold feet about meeting them, are you? No. God, no. I insisted, perhaps too vehemently. I'm excited, just juggling a lot. All right, I'll see you Friday night. Don't work too hard. He hung up. I leaned my head back against the seat, exhaustion seeping into my bones. I needed a plan, a strategy. This was no different from managing a hostile takeover. I told myself, assess the players, control the narrative, mitigate risk. The next morning, I called Claire into my office. The Hamptons this weekend. I need a car. Something inconspicuous, but reliable. A 3-year-old Honda Accord. Maybe. Rent it under the shell. Of course. Delivered to the Wyckoff Street address? Yes. And I need a wardrobe. For a weekend with a middle-class family in the Hamptons. Nothing new. Nothing with visible labels. Think. J. Cruise sale rack. 3 seasons ago. Claire blinked. Her professional mask flawless. I'll source appropriate items from a consignment service. Any other parameters? A hostess gift. For Linda Mitchell. Something thoughtful. Not expensive. A nice candle from a local Brooklyn maker. And a 6-pack of craft beer for Robert. Nothing imported. Something from a Queens microbrewery. Claire's fingers flew over her tablet. Understood. And Claire, clear my calendar from Friday afternoon through Monday morning. No calls. No emails. Tell Mark I'm unreachable. A personal digital detox. He'll ask questions. Tell him it's non-negotiable. My tone brooked no argument. This was the most critical operational rollout of my life. The week crawled by. Every interaction with Jake was layered with new tension. He was talking more about his father. He's been in a real funk lately. Jake said over burgers at our now usual dive bar on Wednesday, going through old photo albums from his Varatech days, awards dinners, golf tournaments. It's pathetic, really, like he's mourning a lost love. I pushed my fries around my plate. Maybe he's just proud of what he built. What he built got dismantled by some faceless suit in a boardroom. Jake said sharply. Then he softened, reaching for my hand. Sorry, it's a sore spot. I just don't want that to ever be me. Or us. We build our life on things that can't be taken away by a merger. On each other. The sentiment was beautiful, and it was a cage of my own making. Friday arrived. I left the office at 3 p.m., changed in the Wyckoff Street studio into faded jeans and a soft, borrowed sweater. The rented Honda was parked outside. It smelled of stale coffee and synthetic pine. I loaded my consignment store weekend bag and the carefully curated, modest gifts into the trunk. The drive to the Hamptons was a surreal journey through a looking glass. I navigated traffic on the Long Island Expressway in a car that rattled slightly. Not in the silent cocoon of the town car. I paid tolls with cash. The grand estates whizzed by, some of them owned by people I knew, people I'd sat across from at benefit galas. I was driving past my own world. Invisible, I found the gray house with blue shutters. It was charming in a weathered, unpretentious way. The yard was neatly kept, but the deck furniture was faded. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the point of no return. As I pulled into the crushed shell driveway, the front door flew open. Linda Mitchell emerged, wiping her hands on an apron. She was a handsome woman in her late 50s, with Jake's smile but sharper eyes. Jake appeared behind her, grinning. I got out of the car, feeling like an actor stepping onto a stage for the first performance. You must be Tiffany, Linda called out, coming down the steps. She enveloped me in a hug that smelled of lemon and garlic. We've heard so much about you. Jake said you got tied up with work. You poor thing. It's so nice to finally meet you. Mrs. Mitchell, I said, hugging her back. Oh, Linda, please. Mrs. Mitchell makes me sound like my mother-in-law. God rest her soul. She held me at arm's length, her gaze appraising, not unkindly, but thorough. Well, aren't you just as pretty as Jake said? And you found the place all on your own. Jake bounded over and kissed me. A quick, possessive kiss. You made it. I was worried your Honda would overheat. He grabbed my bag. Where's your fancy admin mobile? Dead battery. I lied smoothly. Company cheaps out on everything. He laughed. Come on in. Dad's out back, getting the grill fired up. Chloe's around here somewhere, probably judging my life choices from a window. The house inside was cozy, filled with family photos and overstuffed furniture. It was a home, lived in and loved. It felt more authentic than my pristine penthouse ever had. Can I get you a drink, dear? Linda asked. We have wine, beer, lemonade. Lemonade would be great. Thank you. She bustled off to the kitchen. Jake led me through to the back deck, his hand on the small of my back. Ready? He whispered. Before I could answer, we were outside. A man with graying hair and Jake's build stood at a large, ancient-looking grill, his back to us. He was wearing a worn-out Varatech Systems polo shirt. Dad, Jake said. She's here. Robert Mitchell turned around, a grilling spatula in his hand. He had a kind, tired face. His eyes met mine. For a fraction of a second, there was nothing. Then, his expression shifted. The friendly, distracted host vanished. His eyes widened. His jaw went slack. The spatula clattered onto the deck. He stared. He knew. He knew exactly who I was. The world narrowed to the space between us. The sounds of the waves. Linda clattering in the kitchen. It all faded to a dull roar. Robert Mitchell's face paled. His lips moved, forming a single, silent word that screamed in the space between us. He didn't say Tiffany. His eyes, filled with shock, recognition, and a dawning, horrible understanding, locked onto mine. In that silent, suspended moment before the chaos, I saw his lips shape the title that shattered my carefully constructed fiction. He mouthed, CEO. The world stopped. The sizzle of the grill, the cry of the gulls, the distant crash of waves, it all dissolved into a high-pitched static in my ears. Robert Mitchell and I were locked in a silent, terrible conversation across the weathered deck. His face had gone from pale to a sickly gray. The word he hadn't yet spoken hung in the salty air between us. CEO, Dad. Jake's voice cut through the silence, laced with confusion. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Robert blinked, his gaze finally breaking from mine to look at his son. A violent, almost physical effort seemed to pass through him. He bent down, movement stiff, and picked up the fallen spatula. Fine, he grunted, his voice rough. Just lost my grip. Greasy hands. He turned back to the grill, his shoulders rigid. You must be Tiffany. He didn't look at me again. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Mitchell, I said, forcing the words out. My own voice sounded thin. Alien, Robert, he corrected, poking at the burgers with excessive focus. The back door slid open again. Linda emerged, carrying a tray of condiments. Rob, don't scare the girl off by burning the first batch. Hello again, dear. Jake, show Tiffany where she can put her bag. Chloe, get out here and say hello. A girl in her mid-20s, with Jake's green eyes and a skeptical twist to her mouth, sauntered out. She was holding a phone, giving me a quick, head-to-toe assessment. Hey, she said, her tone flat. I'm Chloe. Hi, Chloe, I said, offering a smile that felt like cracking plaster. Jake says you're an admin. It wasn't a question. It was a probe. That's right. For a consulting firm. Yes. Which one? My mind blanked. The fake name I'd concocted months ago evaporated. Oh, it's very small. You wouldn't know it. I felt Jake's hand on my back. A reassuring pressure. Chloe, take it easy with the interrogation. Jake said, laughing. But it was a tense sound. She just got here. Come on. Tiff, I'll show you the guest room. He led me inside, up a narrow staircase to a small, sunlit room with a quilt-covered bed. The moment the door closed, he turned to me. You okay? You're white as a sheet. Was it my dad? I'm sorry. He's been in a weird mood all day. No, it's fine, I said, setting my bag down. Just the drive. Traffic was brutal. I walked to the window, looking out at the back deck. Robert was still at the grill, a solitary, tense figure. Linda was talking to him, but he was just nodding, not looking at her. He'll warm up, Jake said, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. He's just stuck in the past. Don't take it personally. I leaned back into him, drawing strength from the solid, familiar feel of him. This was the man I loved. This was the life I was trying to hold on to. I had to talk to Robert. Immediately. Dinner was a special kind of agony. We sat at a picnic table on the deck. The food, perfectly grilled burgers, Linda's famed potato salad, the dreaded clams, tasted like ash in my mouth. Linda dominated the conversation. So, Tiffany, Jake says you're in a studio in Brooklyn. Must be a squeeze, but smart. So smart to live within your means. So many young girls today, they want it all right away. Credit card debt up to their eyeballs. Mom, Jake warned, but he was smiling. What? It's true. Financial prudence is a virtue. Look at your father and me. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment for 5 years to save the down payment for this place. Now it's worth a fortune. Well, was worth a fortune. The market's dipped. She patted Robert's arm. He flinched almost imperceptibly and took a long drink of his beer. It's a very nice house, I offered. It's a money pit, Robert said, his first words directed vaguely in my direction since the grill. His voice was low, gravelly. Shingles, plumbing, taxes, never ends. He looked right at me. But I suppose that's not a concern in your line of work. Must be stable. Admin work. The way he said admin was loaded. It was a challenge. It pays the bills, I said, holding his gaze, pleading with my eyes. Please, not here. Barely. From what Jake says. Chloe chimed in, picking at her clam. $3,000 a month in the city? That's light. Poverty level. How do you even afford health insurance? Chloe, Jake snapped. What? It's a legit question. I'm in HR, remember? I know what plans cost. I'm on my company's plan. I said, my voice tight. It's adequate. Must be a generous, small consulting firm. Robert mused, staring at his plate. Good benefits on a low salary. Rare. The air at the table grew thick. Linda, sensing the tension but misreading its source, jumped in. Rob, don't be rude. She's our guest. Tiffany, dear, ignore them. Jake says you're wonderful, and that's all that matters to me. Tell me, are you close with your family? I grasped the lifeline, launching into a safe, sanitized story about my parents retiring to Florida. I felt Robert's eyes on me the entire time, watching, judging. After dessert, store-bought apple pie. Linda shooed the men toward the kitchen to clean up. Girls talk on the deck, she declared. Chloe rolled her eyes but stayed. So, Linda began, leaning in conspiratorially. Jake is just smitten. I haven't seen him like this since, well, ever. He's had his share of girlfriends, but they were all so high-strung. You seem so down to earth. Thank you, I murmured. You know he's talking about rings, Chloe said, not looking up from her phone. My blood ran cold. Chloe, Linda hissed. What? She should know. He asked me last week where I got my engagement ring appraised. He's not subtle. Linda swatted at her daughter. Hush, you'll ruin the surprise. She turned back to me, beaming. It's just so refreshing. A simple, honest relationship. You two can build a real life together. No pretensions. Every word was a nail in the coffin of my real life. I needed air. I needed to find Robert. Would you excuse me? I said, standing abruptly. I think I'll go for a little walk. Clear my head from the drive. Of course. Dear, don't go too far. It gets dark quickly on the beach. I escaped down the deck steps and onto the path leading to the beach. The sun was a bleeding orange wound on the horizon. I walked quickly, the cool sand filling my shoes. I had only gone a few hundred yards when I heard heavy footsteps behind me. Tiffany. I turned. Robert Mitchell stood there, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, silhouetted against the dying light. He looked older, wearier than he had on the deck. Mr. Mitchell, Robert. Let's cut the shit, he said, his voice low and hard. All pretense of civility gone. What the hell is this? Some kind of game? A joke? It's not a game, I said, my own voice steadying now that we were in the open. I swear to you, you're Tiffany Monroe, CEO of Nextech, the wunderkind who acquired data flow and made 100 men like me redundant with a signature. He took a step closer. My son thinks you're a secretary. A secretary? I know what he thinks. Why? The word was a bark. full of pain and anger. Why would you do this to him? To my family? You people took everything from me. My job, my dignity, and now you're in my home. Lying to my son's face? For what? Kicks? I love him, I said, the truth of it giving me strength. I met him by accident. He was complaining about gold diggers, about women who only cared about money and status. I was tired of being that person in everyone's eyes. I just wanted to be me, just Tiffany. So I told a stupid lie, and then it grew. A stupid lie? He gave a short, bitter laugh. You built a whole fake life. You're letting my son fall in love with a phantom. The feelings are real. I insisted desperately. On both sides, I was going to tell him. After this weekend, I wanted to meet you all first, to explain the context. The context? He interrupted, his face flushing. The context is you're the reason I spend my days fixing the gutters on a house I can barely afford instead of running a sales division. The context is my son hates everything you represent. And you're standing here, in my face, telling me you love him? I do, I whispered. He stared at me, his chest heaving. The sound of the waves filled the heavy silence. He's talking about marrying you, Robert finally said, the fight seeming to drain out of him, replaced by a profound sadness. He showed me the ring last night. It's my mother's. He had it reset. The news was a physical blow. I swayed on my feet. He has it? He's planning to give it to you in Rome. Robert looked out at the darkening ocean. My boy is in love with a fantasy. And you're breaking his heart. You just don't know it yet. I don't want to break his heart. The words burst out of me, raw and loud. I want to tell him the truth. But if I do it now, after he's introduced me as this modest, simple girl, he'll never understand. He'll think it was all a cruel trick. He'll see me as the villain from your story. Robert was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, resigned. You are the villain in my story. Ms. Monroe, you and people like you. You look at a company and you see assets and liabilities. You don't see the people. You didn't see me. I had no defense. He was right. In the data flow acquisition, I'd seen synergies and market share. Robert Mitchell had been a line item. I am so sorry, I said, and for the first time, the apology wasn't about my lie. It was about his pain. Truly, he looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time. He saw the fear, the guilt, the genuine anguish. He sighed, a long, weary sound. If you tell him now, here, it will destroy him, and it will tear my family apart. Linda, she's already planning the wedding. Hope, fragile and desperate, flickered inside me. What are you saying? I'm saying, he said, each word measured and heavy, that for the sake of my son and my wife's happiness this weekend, I won't say anything. Yet, thank you. I breathed. Don't thank me, he said sharply. This isn't for you. This is a stay of execution, not a pardon. You will tell him, after this weekend. You will sit him down and you will tell him everything. And you will do it before that trip to Rome. He deserves to know who he's really giving my mother's ring to. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I will. I promise. And if you don't, he said, turning to walk back toward the house, his figure a dark shadow against the twilight. I will. And I won't be gentle about it. He left me standing alone on the beach. The deal struck. I had bought myself a weekend. A weekend to play the perfect, simple girlfriend. A weekend to memorize the feeling of Jake's hand in mine, his family's laughter, the fragile normalcy of it all. Because on Monday, I had to dismantle it all. I had to become the villain in his story. 2. The whistle of the wind off the ocean sounded like a warning. The clock was ticking, louder than ever. The weekend stretched before me like a minefield. Every smile, every casual question, every shared meal was now charged with the secret Robert and I held between us. The tension hummed just beneath the surface of the quaint, shabby chic Hampton's house. I returned from the beach walk to find the family in the living room. Jake was building a fire in the stone hearth. He looked up, his face softening with relief. There you are. Get lost? Just needed some air, I said, forcing a smile. I could feel Robert's eyes on me from the armchair where he was pretending to read a magazine. Well, come get warm. We're about to subject you to the Mitchell family's legendary and highly competitive game night, Jake said, pulling me down onto the sofa next to him. His arm around my shoulders felt like both an anchor and a chain. Linda bustled in with a bowl of popcorn. Nothing fancy, just Pictionary and maybe some charades. Chloe cheats at Scrabble, so that's banned. I do not cheat, Chloe said from the floor, not looking up from her phone. I just have a superior vocabulary. Not my fault you all watch reality TV instead of reading. See what I deal with, Jake whispered in my ear, his breath warm. I leaned into him, trying to absorb his normalcy, his oblivious happiness. The games were a surreal exercise in performance. I had to consciously dumb down my clues in Pictionary, drawing a painfully simple plane for airport while Robert, on the opposing team with Chloe, sketched a complex, detailed diagram. His eyes met mine across the coffee table as Jake and Linda groaned at my terrible drawing. His look said everything. See, even your pretending is condescending. During a lull, while Linda refilled wine glasses, Jake pulled me into the kitchen under the pretense of getting more ice. You seem a little quiet, he said, his forehead creased with concern. Is my family too much? Chloe's a lot. I know. No, they're great, I said, too quickly. Really, I'm just tired. It's been a long week. I reached for the ice tray, my hands trembling slightly. He caught my hand, lacing his fingers through mine. Hey, look at me. I did. His green eyes were full of a sincerity that felt like a physical blow. I know this is a big deal. Meeting the parents. It's intense. But seeing you here, in my home, with my crazy family, it just feels right. You fit. The words were a knife twisting in the guilt. Jake, he misread my hesitation. I know it's fast, but when you know, right? I've never been more sure of anything. He leaned in, kissing me softly. It was a kiss full of promise, a future he'd built in his head with a fictional me. Over his shoulder, through the kitchen doorway, I saw Robert standing in the hall, watching us. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked devastated. He turned and walked away. The next morning, the atmosphere was deceptively sunny. Linda made a big pancake breakfast, chattering about local gossip. Chloe was marginally less hostile, asking me vague questions about Brooklyn that felt more like small talk than interrogation. Jake was attentive, affectionate, the perfect boyfriend. Robert was quiet, speaking only when spoken to, his gaze often distant, fixed on the ocean through the window. After breakfast, Jake announced we were going for a walk on the beach. Just us, he said, squeezing my hand. We walked along the water's edge, the cold Atlantic foam washing over our bare feet. The beach was deserted, the sky a vast, clear blue. It was the kind of perfect, peaceful moment I'd fantasized about. So, Jake said, swinging our clasped hands, what's the verdict? Can you handle the Mitchell madness? I love them, I said, and it was partly true. I loved Linda's bustling kindness, even her couponing tips. I was intrigued by Chloe's sharp edges, and I ached for Robert's silent pain. Good, he said, stopping to face me. The wind ruffled his hair, because I've been thinking about Rome, about after. My heart hammered against my ribs. After? I don't want to wait, he said, his eyes shining with earnest intensity. I know the plan was to ask you there, but being here, with you, with my family, it just feels like now is the time. This is real. Our life together. It starts now, not in some fancy piazza in Italy. Jake. Panic was a cold wave rising in my chest. He took both my hands in his. Tiffany, you are the most real, amazing thing that has ever happened to me. You've shown me what matters. I don't need a big production. I just need you. Will you? No. The word tore out of me, sharper than I intended. He froze, his expression crumbling into confusion and hurt. No. I mean, not here. Not like this. I backtracked frantically, my mind racing. Robert's warning echoed in my ears. Before Rome, you planned it. It's our trip, our adventure. Let's keep that plan. It's perfect. The hurt in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by understanding and then a sweet, overwhelming affection. You're right. You're so right. God, I'm an idiot. I got carried away. Of course it should be in Rome. It's more you. Simple, but special. He pulled me into a tight hug. You always know the right thing. How are you so perfect? I buried my face in his shoulder, the salt from the sea spray mixing with the hot, silent tears I couldn't let fall. I had just bought myself a few more weeks. I had just committed to an even more elaborate lie, with the specter of a proposal waiting at the end of it. When we returned to the house, the mood had shifted. Robert was in his small study, the door slightly ajar. As I passed to go upstairs, his voice, low and firm, stopped me. A word. Tiffany. I stepped inside. The room was lined with books and old sailing trophies. Robert stood by the window, his back to me. He tried to propose. Didn't he? He said without turning around. My silence was confirmation. He finally looked at me. The anger was gone, replaced by a deep, weary resignation. I saw the way he looked at you on the beach, like you hung the moon. He's got the ring in his suitcase. Showed it to me again this morning. He shook his head. You're torturing him, and you're torturing me. I'm trying to find the right moment. I pleaded, my voice barely a whisper. There is no right moment for this, he hissed, keeping his voice down. The longer you wait, the worse it gets. You're giving him more memories, more dreams to break. Every time he looks at you with that love in his eyes, you're building the wall higher. I know that. I shot back, my own composure cracking. Do you think I don't feel it? Every second. I love him, Robert, the real him, not the idea of him with a poor girlfriend. I love his laugh, his stupid opinions about pizza, the way he cares about his family. I am trying to find a way to keep that. He studied me for a long moment. You love him, he repeated, not as an accusation, but as a sad realization. God help you both. He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Monday. You tell him on Monday, not a day later, or I swear to God, I will sit him down and tell him everything, and I will make sure he understands exactly who and what you are. The finality in his voice left no room for argument. Monday. I agreed. The word a death sentence. The rest of the weekend was a beautiful, painful dream. I played my part. I helped Linda dry the dishes. I laughed at Jake's jokes. I endured Chloe's probing questions about my career path. I watched football with Robert in a silence that was thick with our shared secret. Every smile I gave Jake felt like a theft. Every touch was a goodbye he didn't understand. On Sunday afternoon, as we packed the rented Honda, Linda hugged me tightly. You're a lovely girl, Tiffany. So good for our Jake. We'll see you soon. I hope. Chloe gave me a half wave. Stay weird. Brooklyn. Robert simply nodded from the porch, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. Jake kissed me goodbye, long and sweet. Drive safe. Text me when you're home. I'll call you tomorrow night. We'll start planning our Roman holiday. His eyes sparkled with a future I had already condemned. I will, I whispered, kissing him one last time, trying to memorize the feel of his lips, the scent of his skin. The drive back to the city was a blur of tears and grim resolution. I went straight to the penthouse, shedding the borrowed, modest clothes like a skin, standing in the middle of my vast, silent living room, surrounded by the panoramic view of the city I commanded. I felt smaller and more lost than I ever had in the cozy studio. I had until Monday, one more day of the lie, one more day of being the woman Jake loved. Then, I had to break both our hearts. The CEO had to fire the only thing that had ever felt real. The deal was done. All that was left was the execution. Monday dawned with the stark, impersonal light of a courtroom. My penthouse, usually a sanctuary of calm efficiency, felt like a cell. I had rehearsed the conversation 100 times in my head, each version more disastrous than the last. Jake, I'm not an admin. I'm the CEO of Nextech. I lied because I was scared. The word sounded pathetic. Cowardly. Even to me. I couldn't do it over the phone. It had to be in person. But first, I had to get through the business day. A cruel joke of normalcy. I navigated a board meeting. My voice steady as I discussed Q3 projections, while my mind screamed, "My fiancé thinks I make 36,000 a year. My fiancé. I have a ring in a box in my suitcase." At 3 p.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I told Claire to cancel my remaining meetings, citing a migraine. I changed into the same jeans and sweater I'd worn on my first date with Jake. A ridiculous, superstitious attempt at connection. I didn't call Henry. I hailed a yellow cab, giving the driver the address of the sports apparel office in Midtown where Jake worked. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Jake. "Can't stop thinking about the weekend. You were amazing. My mom's already planning Christmas. Can I see you tonight? I have something I'm dying to give you." Attached was a photo, not of the ring, but of a vintage postcard of the Trevi Fountain. The message on the back read, "Make a wish, G." A sob caught in my throat. I typed back, my fingers numb. "Need to talk. Can you meet me?" The usual place, the usual place. The dive bar, the Anchor, where it had all felt simple. His reply was immediate. "Everything okay? You're worrying me. 6 p.m.? 6 p.m., I confirmed. The cab dropped me off a block early. I walked, the cool city air doing nothing to clear the fog of dread. I was 10 minutes early. The Anchor was mostly empty. I slid into the same sticky booth, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I ordered a whiskey, neat, and downed it in one burning gulp, needing the false courage. At 6.05, he wasn't there. At 6.15, my anxiety spiked. He was never late. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, a cold fear gripping me. "Hello, is this Tiffany?" A young woman's voice, tight with accusation. "Yes? Who is this?" "It's Chloe, Jake's sister." Her tone was icy. "Chloe, is Jake okay?" "He's fine, physically, but we need to talk. Now, what's going on? Where's Jake?" "He's on his way to your studio." She spat the word. "He wanted to surprise you with an early Rome gift, but I did some digging instead. Some real digging." The floor dropped out from under me. "Chloe, I can explain." "Explain what? That you're a liar? A con artist?" Her voice shook with fury. "I'm in HR, remember? I know how to find people. Your little, small consulting firm doesn't exist, but you know what does? Next Tech. And you know who the CEO of Next Tech is? Tiffany Monroe. And you know what a simple Google image search shows? It shows you, Tiffany, giving a keynote speech at a tech conference last year, in a $5,000 suit. I couldn't breathe. She'd found me. You let my brother fall in love with you. You sat at our table and ate my mother's food and lied to our faces. You let my dad, God, you let my dad sit there knowing." Her voice cracked. "He knew, didn't he? That's why he was so weird. Chloe, please, let me talk to Jake. Let me explain." "Explain what? That you're a bored billionaire who gets her kicks pretending to be poor? That you destroyed my dad's career and then came to our house for a weekend fucking cookout?" She was crying now, angry, hurt tears. "He's on his way to your fake apartment right now. But he's not going to find you there. Is he? Where does the great Tiffany Monroe really live? The Plaza? A penthouse on Fifth? It's not like that." I whispered, but the line was dead. Panic, pure and blinding, took over. I threw cash on the table and ran out into the street, fumbling for my phone. I called Jake. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, "Jake, don't go to the apartment. Please, meet me at the Anchor. We need to talk. It's urgent." No response. I hailed another cab. Wyckoff Street, Brooklyn. Fast, double the fare. The ride was a nightmare of stopped traffic and my own spiraling thoughts. He would be at the studio. He would see the hollow, stage set of a life. He would know the depth of the deception before I could even open my mouth. I got out a block away, running down the familiar street. I saw him first. He was standing on the sidewalk in front of my building, his back to me, shoulders slumped. In his hand, he held a small, wrapped gift box, the postcard from Rome. "Jake," I called out, breathless. He turned slowly. The expression on his face shattered me. It wasn't just anger. It was a profound, gut-wrenching hurt, mixed with a dawning, horrible comprehension. "Tiffany," he said, my name sounding like a curse. "Or should I call you Ms. Monroe?" So Chloe had reached him. "Jake, please, let me explain." "Explain?" He let out a short, brutal laugh. "What's to explain? My sister just sent me a link to your Wikipedia page. Forbes 30 under 30, CEO of a unicorn startup. Estimated net worth, well, let's just say it's a bit more than $3,000 a month." His voice was dangerously calm. "You live here? In this shithole?" He gestured with the gift box toward the modest brownstone. "Or is this just your little puppet theater for slumming it with the normals?" "It's not like that," I pleaded, stepping closer. He took a step back, as if my proximity was toxic. "Then what is it like? Tiffany, enlighten me. Was this all some kind of social experiment? See how the other half lives? Or was it more personal? Did you get a thrill from making a fool out of me?" "No, I met you, and you were talking about how much you hated gold diggers, how you wanted something real, and I just wanted to be that for you. I wanted you to see me, not my money, not my title. So you lied." He roared, the calm finally breaking. A few people on the street glanced over. "You fabricated an entire person, the humble admin, the girl in a studio, the one who understood the value of a dollar." He mocked my own words, his face contorted with pain. "You let me praise you for your simplicity. You let me pity your boss. You let me pay for your drinks. My God, you must have been laughing your ass off the whole time." I wasn't laughing. I cried, tears streaming down my face now. I fell in love with you, the real you, and I was terrified that the real me would be everything you hated. The real you, ice everything I hate. He shot back, his voice cracking. "You're the faceless suit in the boardroom. You're the reason my father drinks himself to sleep every night, wondering what he did wrong. You're the cold, calculating bitch who sees people as line items." He hurled the gift box at my feet. It bounced off the pavement, the wrapping tearing. A small, velvet jewelry box spilled out. Not the ring, a pair of simple silver earrings, shaped like tiny Roman coins. We both stared at the shattered gift, a symbol of a future that was now just broken glass and twisted velvet. "You were going to propose in Rome," I whispered, stating the awful truth. "With my grandmother's ring." He said, his voice hollow, "I had it reset for you. For the simple, honest girl who didn't care about diamonds." He looked at me, his eyes empty of all the warmth I'd come to love. "Who are you? I don't even know you." "I'm the same person," I insisted desperately. "The woman who argued about pizza with you, who laughed at your stupid jokes, who listened to you talk about your dreams. That was all real, was it?" He shook his head, a bitter, broken smile on his lips. Or was it just part of the performance? The billionaire playing poor. Must have been a fun little vacation from your gilded cage. His words were designed to wound, and they hit their mark with precision. It wasn't a game. "Jake, I love you. Don't." He snarled. "Don't you dare say that. You don't love me. You love the idea of being loved by someone who didn't want your money. You used me to feel authentic. Well, congratulations. You got your experience. Now go back to your penthouse and your board meetings. Leave me and my family the hell alone." He turned to walk away. "Jake, wait." I stumbled after him, grabbing his arm. He wrenched it away as if my touch burned. "Don't touch me. I never want to see you again. If you come near me, or my family, I will make sure every media outlet knows what a twisted, manipulative liar Tiffany Monroe is. I'll ruin your authentic brand." He meant it. The fury in his eyes was absolute. He walked away, his stride long and angry, disappearing around the corner without a backward glance. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, the discarded earrings glinting in the dim light from the street lamp. The explosion had happened. and I was standing in the radioactive rubble of the life I'd built on a lie. The fallout had only just begun. The silence after Jake left was more violent than his shouts. I stood on the Brooklyn sidewalk. The city's normal hum, the distant sirens, the chatter from a bodega sounding grotesquely cheerful. I looked down at the small velvet box in the grime, the silver coin earrings spilling out like discarded tokens from a game I'd lost. I bent, my movements robotic, and picked them up. The metal was cold. My phone buzzed relentlessly in my pocket. Claire, Mark, the board, the real world, demanding its CEO back. I silenced it. I didn't call Henry. I walked, aimlessly, 4 blocks, then miles, the cool night air doing nothing to numb the raw, screaming pain inside. His words played on a loop. Cold, calculating bitch, faceless suit, everything I hate. I finally stopped, finding myself on the Brooklyn Bridge promenade. The glittering skyline of Manhattan, my kingdom, looked like a cage. I leaned on the railing, the earrings clenched so tight in my fist the edges dug into my palm. My phone buzzed again. A new number, a 631 area code. The Hamptons. I answered, my voice hollow. Hello, it's Robert. His voice was gravelly, exhausted. Chloe called me. She told Jake. I know. I whispered. He found me. We talked. How bad? I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He threw the gift he bought me for Rome on the ground. He said I was everything he hated. He said he'd ruin me if I came near his family again. Robert was silent for a long moment. On his end, I could hear the faint crash of waves. He was probably on the deck. I'm sorry, he said finally, and it sounded genuine. You warned me. I did. Doesn't make it easier to hear. He sighed. He called here. After. Screaming. Crying. Linda's hysterical. Chloe's locked in her room, blaming herself for not digging sooner. You've blown a hole right through the middle of us. The full impact of the collateral damage hit me. It wasn't just Jake and me. It was his entire family, already fragile, now shattered. I never meant to hurt any of you. Intentions don't matter much right now, he said, not unkindly. Only fallout. What are you going to do? What can I do? He never wants to see me again. And you're just going to accept that? The mighty CEO, used to getting what she wants, just walks away. His challenge sparked a faint, angry ember in the numbness. What do you want from me, Robert? You gave me an ultimatum. I was going to tell him Monday. Your daughter beat me to it. The result is the same. Is it? He asked. You were going to tell him your truth. Now, all he knows is the lie, and that you're the person who cost me my job. He's cobbled together a narrative where you're a monster. You're just going to let that stand? He told me to stay away. Since when do you take orders? He fired back, a hint of his old corporate steel in his voice. You orchestrate mergers. You manage crises. This is a crisis. Manage it. He hung up. I stood there, stunned. Robert Mitchell, the man who should despise me most, was pushing me to fight. But fight for what? A man who looked at me with pure revulsion? The walk back to civilization was a blur. I ended up at the Wyckoff Street studio. I hadn't been planning to go there, but my feet carried me. I let myself in. It was dark, sterile, a museum of my deception. I sat on the edge of the bed, the only piece of furniture that looked slightly used, and finally let the tears come. Great, heaving sobs that emptied me out. The next morning, I went to the office. There was no other option. The world didn't stop because my heart was broken. Claire took one look at my face and wordlessly brought me a triple espresso. Clear my morning, I said, my voice raspy. Mark needs 5 minutes. The Singapore. Clear it. Claire. All of it. I sat at my desk, staring at the skyline. Robert's words echoed. Manage it. But this wasn't a hostile takeover. This was a heart. You couldn't negotiate with a heart. My personal cell buzzed. An unknown number, but a New York area code. I answered, bracing for more vitriol. Tiffany Monroe? A woman's voice. Professional. Sharp. Yes. This is Lorna Shields from the New York Post, page 6. I'm working on a story. and I wanted to give you a chance to comment. Ice water flooded my veins. A story about what? About your rather unconventional personal life. We've received a tip about a romantic relationship you've been conducting under a significant false pretense. That you've been posing as a low-wage employee to deceive a romantic partner. Care to comment? Jake, he'd made good on his threat faster than I'd imagined. Or maybe it was Chloe. It didn't matter. No comment, I said, my voice flat. The tip included some rather specific details about a family in the Hamptons. A father who was a former employee of a company you acquired. It paints quite a picture. The billionaire catfisher headline writes itself. I said, no comment. I ended the call. My hands were shaking. He wasn't just angry. He was going to war. And he had the high ground. The narrative of the wronged everyman versus the deceptive, powerful elite. I called Markin. We have a potential PR crisis. Personal, but it will bleed into the company. I gave him the bare bones. His face grew increasingly grim. Tiffany, this is bad. The authentic leader brand we've built for you. For Next Tech, this destroys it. It makes you look pathological. We need to get ahead of it. A statement, maybe an interview. Framing it as a personal mistake. A fear of being used. I'm not doing a pity tour. I snapped. Then you're letting them define you. And they will define you as a liar and a predator. He was right. But the thought of going on some talk show, of reducing the messy, painful truth of my feelings for Jake into a soundbite for damage control, made me sick. For 2 days, I operated in a fog. The board called an emergency meeting. I stonewalled them, assuring them it was a private matter being handled. The Post didn't run the story immediately. They were likely digging for more, waiting for me to crack. Jake was a ghost. He blocked my number. Emails bounced back. I was locked out. On the third day, as I was staring at a financial report without seeing it, Claire came in, her expression unreadable. There's a Robert Mitchell here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. My head shot up. Send him in. Robert walked into my office. He looked older, out of place amidst the sleek furniture and the breathtaking view. But he held himself straight. Robert. Tiffany. He didn't sit. He's not sleeping. He's not eating. He's just raging. Or crumbling. The reporter called Linda yesterday. Scared her half to death. The Post called me too. I figured. He's hell-bent on destroying you. Robert, finally Saturday weary. I came to ask you to stop him. I barked a bitter laugh. How? You saw him. He thinks I'm the devil. You need to talk to him. Really talk to him. Not on a street corner. Not through lawyers or reporters. He won't see me. Make him see you. Robert said, intensity burning in his tired eyes. You're a CEO. You negotiate. So negotiate. But you have to lead with the truth. The whole, ugly, vulnerable truth. Not the version he's built in his head. Why are you helping me? I asked. The question that had haunted me since his phone call on the bridge. He looked out at the city, his jaw working, because the man I saw on that beach, the one who begged me for time because she loved my son, that wasn't the CEO who fired me. That was a woman who was scared and in love. And because he met my gaze, the monster he's making you out to be, that's easier for him to hate. It lets him off the hook for loving you. But it's not the whole story. And my family deserves the whole story before he burns it all down trying to get revenge. He stood up. His marketing firm is having a big client pitch tomorrow afternoon at their offices in the Flatiron District. He'll be there. It's the only place he's going right now. He placed a small business card on my desk, Jake's office address. Don't make this worse. After he left, I picked up the card. It was a terrible idea, a public scene, a potential disaster. But Robert was right. Letting Jake's narrative stand, hiding behind no comment, was the coward's way. It was the CEO's way. Control the message, minimize the damage. But this wasn't just about the company. This was about the man I loved, and the terrible, real mess I'd made. I had to try, even if it meant walking into the lion's den. Even if it meant he tore me apart in front of his colleagues. The reckoning wasn't over. It was just moving to a new venue. I had to face the music I'd composed with every lie. The showdown was scheduled. The lobby of Bolt Creative. Jake's marketing firm was a temple to curated cool. Exposed brick, neon art, a receptionist with a geometric tattoo peeking above her collar. It hummed with the energy of a big pitch day, people in stylishly casual clothes moving with purpose, the smell of expensive coffee in the air. I stood there, feeling like an alien. I was dressed not as CEO Monroe, but as I had been for Jake, simple black pants, a sweater, no obvious jewelry, yet I felt every eye on me. Maybe it was the palpable tension I carried, or maybe they simply sensed an outsider. I approached the receptionist. "I'm here to see Jake Mitchell. Is he expecting you?" she asked, her smile polite but distant. "No, but it's urgent, personal." She gave me a once-over, her fingers pausing over the keyboard. "He's in a client meeting that's running over. It could be a while. You can wait over there." She gestured to a cluster of modernist chairs that looked as comfortable as sculpture. I sat. I waited. I watched teams hustle in and out of a glass-walled conference room I could see down the hall. My heart was a frantic bird in a cage. This was a terrible idea. What was I going to do? Storm the conference room? Make a scene? Robert's words, "Make him see you," felt like a naive fantasy now. An hour ticked by, then another. My resolve, fueled by desperation and Robert's unexpected push, began to curdle into humiliation. I was the CEO of a billion-dollar company, sitting like a supplicant in a trendy lobby, waiting for a man who hated me. Finally, the conference room doors swung open. A stream of people poured out, laughing, looking energized. A good pitch. Then, Jake was among them, at the center, shaking hands with a couple in sleek business attire, the clients. He was smiling, the easy, charming smile I loved, but it didn't reach his eyes. They looked tired, shadowed. My breath caught. He looked so normal, a professional in his element, and I was about to shatter it. He turned, still talking to a colleague, and his gaze swept absently across the lobby. It passed over me, then snapped back. The smile vanished. His face went slack with shock, then hardened into instant, visceral fury. He said something quickly to his colleague and stalked towards me, his movements stiff. "What the hell are you doing here?" he hissed, stopping a few feet away, keeping his voice low but venomous. "We need to talk. Jake, really talk. Somewhere private." He let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. A few people nearby glanced over. "Are you out of your mind? I told you to stay away from me. Did you not understand the words? Or do you just not care about anyone's boundaries but your own? Please, 5 minutes. No, get out." He turned to walk away. "I'm not leaving until you hear me out." My voice rose, more desperate than I intended. More heads turned. He whirled back, his control snapping. "Hear you out? What could you possibly say? More lies? Another story? Oh, Jake, I'm actually a secret agent. I'm a princess in hiding." His voice was no longer a whisper. It carried in the open, high-ceilinged space. His colleagues were staring now, the clients lingering by the elevator. Curious. "It wasn't a story to hurt you," I pleaded, stepping closer. "Stop." He held up a hand, taking a step back as if I were contagious. "Don't come near me. You know what? You want to talk? Let's talk. Right here, since you love an audience." His voice was loud, clear, projecting now. A performance. "Let's tell everyone the truth. This woman," he said, gesturing broadly at me, "is Tiffany Monroe, CEO of Nextech. Worth, what, a couple $100 million?" A soft gasp rippled through the nearby staff. Whispers started. "For the last 4 months," Jake continued, his voice dripping with sarcastic relish, "she's been pretending to be a broke office assistant, making $30,000 a year, living in a shitty studio, letting me, a mere marketing manager, buy her drinks and dinner because she was just so down to earth." He made air quotes, his eyes blazing with hurt and fury. "She came to my family's home, ate my mother's food, sat across from my father, a man who lost his job because of a merger she orchestrated and lied to his face. She let me fall in love with a phantom. She was going to let me propose to a woman who doesn't exist." The lobby was utterly silent now. Every eye was on us. I could feel the heat of their judgment, their morbid fascination. I was naked, exposed. Jake, stop, I whispered, mortified. Why? Isn't this what you wanted? Authenticity? He sneered. Here it is, the authentic. Humble Tiffany. Except it's all a carefully constructed facade for a bored. Rich bitch who gets her kicks playing poor. Did you enjoy it? Slumming it with the little people? Did you take notes for your next board meeting on how the other half lives? Each word was a public lashing. Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I would not give him the satisfaction. I loved you, I said, my voice shaking but clear in the silent room. That part was never a lie. You don't know what love is. He roared. Love is honest. Love is real. You are a manipulator, a con artist. You see people as projects, as pawns. You used me to feel something you couldn't buy. Well, game over. You got caught. Now get the fuck out of my life and go back to your ivory tower where you belong. He was panting, his chest heaving. The raw hatred in his eyes was absolute. There was no love left, not a shred, only the searing pain of betrayal, twisted into public vengeance. I looked at him, at the man whose laugh had once felt like sunshine, now contorted with rage. I looked at the ring of his colleagues, their faces a mix of pity for him and horrified curiosity aimed at me. This was it. This was the explosion Robert had warned me about, and it was more devastating than I could have imagined. I straightened my shoulders. The CEO in me, the part that could face down hostile investors, finally surfaced through the personal wreckage. You're right, I said, my voice cold and steady, a stark contrast to his heat. I lied. It was wrong. I was a coward. But you're wrong about one thing. He crossed his arms, a defiant, wounded statue. Oh, enlighten me. This wasn't a game, and I'm not the monster you're painting for your colleagues. I turned my gaze to include the stunned audience. I made a terrible, personal mistake because I was afraid. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you and your family. That's the truth. I turned and walked towards the exit, my heels clicking on the polished concrete. The silence behind me was oppressive. Just before I pushed through the glass doors, his voice rang out one last time, sharp and final. Stay away from me, Tiffany. And tell your lawyers to expect a call from mine. I'm not done. I didn't look back. I walked out into the bright, indifferent afternoon, the echo of his public evisceration ringing in my ears. The confrontation was over. I had faced him, and I had lost everything. But as I hailed a cab, a cold, hard clarity settled over me. He had declared war in a public forum. He'd threatened legal action. The personal was now irreversibly professional. The explosion had scattered the debris, and the fallout would be a battle, the fight for the narrative for my company, my reputation, and perhaps some sliver of the truth was just beginning. My corner office at Next Tech was silent, a world away from the humiliated roar of blood in my ears. The floor-to-ceiling windows showed a postcard perfect view of the city, but it felt like a painting behind glass. I stood, not at my desk, but with my back to the room, staring out without seeing anything. My hands were steady. That was the only part of me that was. The intercom on my desk buzzed. A sharp, intrusive sound. Ms. Monroe? Robert Chin is here. He says it's urgent. Send him in. My voice was flat. Robert entered, closing the door softly behind him. He didn't speak immediately, just came to stand beside me, following my gaze to the skyline. The silence stretched, heavy with what he knew he would find out. They're calling it the Pauper Princess prank, he finally said, his tone carefully neutral. A clip from the lobby is already on Biz News. Muffled audio, but the captions are clear. Bored, rich bitch, slumming it with the little people. It's trending. I closed my eyes. How bad? Bad. The narrative is ugly. Entitled CEO deceives middle-class boyfriend. Human interest with a vicious twist. Comments are a mix of schadenfreude and outright fury. Your corporate comms team is having a collective aneurysm. They want a statement. Now. I turned from the window. What's the legal threat? He wasn't bluffing. His lawyer, a pit bull from Klein Reed, known for high-profile harassment and defamation suits, contacted our general counsel an hour ago. They're alleging intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraudulent misrepresentation, and are exploring if his father's termination from Stratham Corporation during your merger gives them grounds for a tortious interference claim. It's a scattergun approach, designed to intimidate and generate depositions and headlines. A cold, tactical part of my mind, the part that had built this company, clicked into gear. The personal devastation was shoved into a locked room. The CEO was now in command. Our response: legal says the case is weak, borderline frivolous on most counts, but defending it will be expensive, messy, and a perpetual PR drip feed. They recommend settling quickly, with a strong NDA, to make it go away. Make it go away. I repeated, a hollow laugh escaping. He doesn't want it to go away, Robert. He wants to burn it all down. A settlement looks like an admission of guilt. It fuels the story. Then what do you want to do? He asked, watching me closely. I want to fight. Fight how? In court? The discovery process will be a public autopsy of your personal life. Every text, every date. It'll be a feast for the media for years. Not in court, I said, moving to my desk. The clarity was brutal, but it was clarity. In the court of public opinion, he declared war in a public lobby. We fight back on the public stage. Robert's brows drew together. That's incredibly high risk. Your image is already taking a hit. My image was reclusive, icy billionaire. Now it's deceptive, heartless billionaire. We need to change the narrative. We can't just be defensive. I Saturday my mind racing. Get Sarah from PR and Mark from legal in here. Now. 30 minutes later, my head of public relations, Sarah Vance, sharp, cynical, and brilliant in a crisis, and our lead counsel, Mark, were seated across from me. Robert leaned against the window ledge. I've seen the footage, Sarah said, tapping her tablet. It's a disaster. He comes off as the wronged everyman. You come off as a sociopath. The secret identity angle is catnip. We need to kill it with kindness, a public, heartfelt apology, a donation to a charity for, I don't know, financial literacy for low-income workers. We express deep regret. Frame it as a personal journey that went awry. Emphasize your youth and the pressures of leadership. No, I cut her off. Tiffany, with all due respect, a contrition strategy is our only. I said no. An apology accepts his framework. It says, yes, I was the bored rich girl playing a cruel game. That's the lie. That's what we're fighting. Mark, the lawyer, adjusted his glasses. Our legal strategy should be separate from. It's all the same battlefield now. I said, here's what we do. First, we do not respond to the lawsuit with a standard motion to dismiss. We file a counterclaim. Silence. A counterclaim for what? Mark asked, bewildered. Defamation, slander. He made specific, false, and damaging statements of fact in a public forum to third parties with clear malicious intent. He called me a con artist. He said I get my kicks playing poor. Those are not opinions. They are actionable assertions of fact that are provably false. My financial records, my work history, my entire life proves they are false. He accused me of a crime, fraud for personal gain. That's slander per us. Robert let out a low whistle. Sarah's eyes widened, then narrowed, calculating. Mark was already shaking his head. It's aggressive, very aggressive, and it ties the two cases together inextricably. Good, I said. It changes the headline from CEO sued by jilted boyfriend to legal battle erupts, both sides alleging wrongdoing. It muddies his clean victim narrative. It forces him into a defensive position. He has to prove his claims, not just make them on cable news. Sarah leaned forward, a spark of professional fascination cutting through the crisis. We could leak the counterclaim filing selectively, Frame it as you being forced to defend your reputation against false and vicious accusations after a painful, private breakup. Shift the focus from your deception to his retaliation. Exactly. Second, I continued, we go on the offensive with the truth. A controlled, strategic release. We need to own the story before the paparazzi vultures piece it together from garbage sources. What truth? Robert asked quietly. The why? I said, meeting his gaze. Not the full, messy truth, but a curated one. We release a statement, not an apology. A clarification from my personal spokesperson. It states that during a period of immense personal stress and isolation following the rapid growth of Nextech, I chose to step outside my public role to experience life and form connections without the filter of wealth and status. It was an error in judgment regarding transparency with one individual, for which I have profound private regret. However, the characterization of my motives as malicious or fraudulent is categorically false and deeply damaging. Sarah was typing furiously. It's defensive-aggressive. It contextualizes the lie as a personal, almost existential crisis, not a game. It paints you as human, flawed, isolated by success, not a monster. The media will eat up the lonely at the top angle. It also subtly reframes Jake. Robert added, catching on. He's not just the wronged party. He's the person who failed to offer understanding, who chose public vengeance when he discovered the vulnerability of the person he claimed to love. It's a hell of a counter-narrative. Mark looked profoundly uncomfortable. This is a massive legal and PR gamble. If any part of this curated truth is disprovable, it blows up in our faces and becomes evidence of further deception. Then we make sure it's not disprovable. I said, my voice steel. Every word will be vetted by you and Sarah. It's not the whole story, but it is a true story. My stress was real. My isolation was real. My feelings for him were real. We're just selecting which truths to lead with. I looked at each of them. The CEO was back, in full control, mapping a campaign. The heartbreak was fuel now, converted into cold, strategic fury. He wanted a war. He just mobilized an army he can't comprehend. We don't apologize. We don't settle. We fight. We change the story. And we win. The room was quiet, charged with the new, dangerous direction. Sarah finally nodded, a slow, grim smile touching her lips. Okay, boss, let's go to war. As they filed out to begin, my phone, face down on the desk, lit up, a notification from a news app. Jake Mitchell to give exclusive interview to The Current tonight at 8 p.m. I picked up the phone. The personal devastation threatened to leak out of its locked room. He wasn't waiting for legal papers. He was taking his story to the biggest news magazine show in the country. The battle for the narrative had just moved to primetime. The sleek, silent television in my penthouse felt like a portal to an alternate reality. On the screen, against the familiar, serious backdrop of the Current's studio, sat Jake. He looked composed, dressed in a simple, dark button-down that projected earnestness. The host, Miranda Vance, leaned forward with practiced empathy. My own PR team's curated truth statement had gone out 2 hours prior. The digital skirmish had begun, with headlines oscillating between lonely CEO seeks normalcy and Monroe's sob story. Spin control. Now, Jake had the megaphone. Jake, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. Miranda began, her voice a soothing murmur. The public has heard a version of events from Ms. Monroe's representatives today, framing this as a personal journey that went awry. Can you tell us, in your own words, what really happened? Jake took a steadying breath, looking directly into the camera. It was a good look, wounded, but strong. What happened, Miranda, is that I was systematically deceived for months. I fell in love with a fictional character. Tiffany Monroe didn't just omit details. She constructed an entire identity, a struggling, humble woman named Tiffany, and she performed that role relentlessly. She came into my family's home, looked my parents in the eye, and lied. Her statement suggests her motives were born out of isolation, a desire for a connection untainted by her wealth. Do you believe that? A bitter, sad smile touched Jake's lips. It was masterful. I believed she was isolated. I believed she longed for a real connection. Because that's what she told me. That's the script she wrote. But think about the level of calculation that requires. She leased an apartment. She curated a wardrobe. She maintained this double life while running a billion-dollar company. This wasn't a spontaneous lie. This was a long-term, elaborate scheme. When someone goes to those lengths, it's not about finding love. It's about control. It's about power. My hands clenched in my lap. He was good. He was turning my very competence against me. Miranda nodded. The most damaging allegation is that this wasn't just personal, but that it was connected to your father's job loss. Can you explain that? Jake's expression hardened. My father, Robert Mitchell, was a VP at Stratham Corporation. Last year, Next Tech acquired a competitor, which led to a merger. My father's position was eliminated. He was given a severance package and shown the door after 15 years of loyalty. Tiffany Monroe signed off on that merger. She knew who my father was when she walked into our house. She looked at a man whose career she helped end, and she smiled and shook his hand and pretended to be a minimum wage employee. That's not just personal deception. That's sociopathic. The word hung in the air of my living room. Toxic and final. And now, Miranda pressed. Her legal team has filed a counterclaim against you, alleging defamation. They say your public statements are false and malicious. Jake's composure slipped for just a second. A flash of genuine anger. Of course, she's suing me. That's what people like her do. They use their money and their power to crush anyone who challenges their narrative. She's trying to silence me, to punish me for telling the truth. But I won't be silenced. This isn't about money for me. This is about the truth. And the truth is, Tiffany Monroe is a fraud in her personal life. And from what my father experienced, she's ruthless in her professional one. People should know who they're really dealing with. The interview cut to a commercial. I sat in the ringing silence, his words sociopathic. Fraud. Ruthless echoing. He had framed the narrative perfectly. The powerful, corrupt elite versus the principled everyman. My statement about isolation looked feeble, self-serving next to his visceral, personal story. My phone rang. It was Robert Chin. You saw it. I saw it. He's a natural. We're losing the narrative. Tiffany, the sympathy is solidly with him. The lonely CEO angle is being laughed off as a pathetic excuse. We need to pivot. Hard. I have an idea, I said, my voice quiet but certain. But I need to do it alone. Tiffany, no more lone wolf. It's not lone wolf. It's bait. And I need you and Sarah to be ready to swarm the moment I spring the trap. Get me everything you can on Bolt Creative's biggest client, the one they were pitching when I was there. And I need a secure, untraceable recording device, the kind that links to a cloud backup the second it's activated. There was a long pause. What are you planning? He wants a public reckoning. I'm going to give him one, but on my terms. He said it's not about money. I'm going to find out what it's really about. 2 days later, I stood outside an upscale whiskey bar in the West Village, not far from Bolt Creative's offices. I knew from Robert's discreet inquiries that Jake and his team were here celebrating. They'd landed the big client they'd been pitching, the one I'd interrupted. I was dressed differently, not the CEO, not the humble admin, but something in between. Expensive, but understated. Confident, I wore a small, functional piece of jewelry on my lapel. I took a deep breath and pushed through the door. The bar was loud, buzzing with congratulatory energy. I saw him immediately, at the center of a large table, holding court with a dozen colleagues. He had a glass in his hand, his face flushed with triumph and alcohol. I walked straight to the table. The conversation died as I approached. Jake looked up, and the triumph on his face morphed into stunned disbelief. Then cold fury. What the hell? One of his colleagues muttered. I need 5 minutes. Jake, I said, my voice calm, carrying over the sudden silence. Alone, or we can do this here. in front of everyone. Again, his jaw tightened. He saw the same determined look I'd had in his lobby. But this time, there was no desperation, only cold intent. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly. Fine, but this is the last time you ever ambush me. He led me to a small, empty function room at the back of the bar, slamming the door shut. The noise from the bar became a muted throb. You have a stunning lack of respect for restraining orders and basic human decency. He seethed, not bothering to lower his voice. This will be over soon, I said, activating the recording device with a subtle press against my lapel. A tiny green light in my mind's, I confirmed it was live, streaming to a secure server. I saw your interview. You were very compelling. It was the truth. Was it? I took a step closer. The truth is, I lied about who I was. I've admitted that. The truth is, I fell in love with you. You deny that. But let's talk about the other truth. Jake, the one you're not telling Miranda Vance. There is no other truth. The truth about what you really wanted. I said, my gaze locking on his. You talked about simple pleasures, a real life. But the moment you thought I was just a broke admin, you started planning how to provide, how to save me. You loved the idea of being the hero in my small, struggling life. It fed your ego. But when you found out I didn't need saving, that I was more powerful than you could ever be, that hero fantasy crumbled. And it wasn't hurt that turned to rage. Jake, it was humiliation. His face flushed darker. You don't know anything about me. I know that a man who truly values simplicity doesn't need to sue for millions. He walks away. You're not walking away. You're trying to cash in. On the pain. On the story. On my money. This lawsuit. This media tour. It's your new pitch. The wronged man. It's a grift. Go to hell. He spat. You think you can buy your way out of this? You think your money and your lawyers scare me? No. I said softly. I think they're exactly what you want. This was never about me lying about my job. It was about me lying about my net worth. If I'd been a genuinely poor admin who'd lied about having a rich uncle, you'd have been angry, but you wouldn't be on national TV. You're not outraged by the deception. Jake, you're outraged that the golden ticket you thought you had was a figment of your imagination. You're furious you fell in love with a pauper when you could have had a princess. He was shaking now, his control obliterated by rage and whiskey. You arrogant bitch. You think everyone is as transactional as you are? I loved you. I wanted to marry you and own me. I fired back. A simple, humble wife you could mold. A life where you were the undisputed provider. The star. My reality threatened that. So now you're trying to monetize the wreckage. How much? Jake? How much will it take to make you go away and stop telling your truth? $1 million? 5. Is that the price of your bruised ego and your lost fantasy? He lunged forward, stopping just short of me, his breath hot and sour with whiskey. You want to know what I want? He hissed, his voice low and venomous. I want to see you ruined. I want that perfect, pristine image of the genius CEO shredded. I want everyone to know you're a pathetic, lonely liar. The money from the lawsuit? I'll donate every damn penny to charity and live stream it just to watch you squirm. This isn't about money. This is about winning. I'm going to prove that even with all your billions, you can't control everything. You can't control me, and I will destroy you. The words hung in the air. A perfect, venomous confession, not of greed, but of a vengeful desire to annihilate. I took a slow step back, a small, cold smile touching my lips. Thank you, Jake, for the clarity. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of confusion cutting through the fury. What? That was all I needed. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving him standing there, suddenly uncertain, the echo of his own damning words just beginning to resonate in his alcohol-fogged mind. Outside, in the cool night air, I pulled out my phone and called Robertson. It's done. I have the recording. The full, unedited context. He just admitted, on tape, that his motive is vindictive destruction, not justice or truth. Release the counterclaim details to the Wall Street Journal now. And Sarah needs to cut a 90-second video clip, audio over a black screen with a transcript. His key lines: "This isn't about money. This is about winning. I will destroy you." Release it on every social platform Nextech owns in 1 hour. Title it, "The Real Motive." The trap was sprung. The public showdown was entering its final, decisive phase. He had the spotlight, but I had the microphone, and I was about to play his greatest hit back to the world. The digital storm hit at 9:03 p.m. Eastern Time. Sarah Vance, with the precision of a military strategist, executed the campaign. The 90-second audio clip, cleanly edited and captioned, went live across every Nextech social channel simultaneously. The title was stark. Context: for the first 30 seconds, there was only the ambient noise of the bar. Then my voice, calm and clear. "How much, Jake? How much will it take to make you go away? Is that the price of your bruised ego?" Then, his response, raw, venomous, and unmistakable. "You want to know what I want? I want to see you ruined. This isn't about money. This is about winning. I will destroy you." It was followed by a simple, white text on black slide, post linking to the full, unedited recording hosted on a secure site, and a one-line statement: "Ms. Monroe will be making no further comment on this private matter." The internet, which had spent days feasting on the pauper princess narrative, choked on its own fervor. The story flipped in minutes. Headlines that had once screamed billionaire's cruel hoax now read scorned lover's vengeance. Secret recording reveals dark motives. Comment sections erupted. Sympathy, once a monolith for Jake, shattered into a million fragments. So she lied about her job, but he literally says he wants to destroy her. That's unhinged. He's not a victim. He's a vindictive jerk. She dodged a bullet. This is why you don't date down. Ladies, the male ego is fragile. Both of them are toxic, but wanting to ruin someone is next level. My phone began to ring. Reporters, talk shows, colleagues. I silenced it all. The only call I took was from Robertson. The counterclaim filing is the lead story on the journal's site. He said, voice tight with adrenaline, pairing it with the audio. It's a masterstroke. Tiffany, the narrative is completely reframed. He's no longer David versus Goliath. He's an angry ex with a vendetta. Klein Reed just called. They want to talk settlement. Immediately. No, I said, staring at the city lights. The cold, tactical fire that had sustained me was banked, leaving only ashes and a deep, hollow fatigue. Tell them we are no longer interested in a settlement. We are proceeding with the defamation suit. Full discovery. Every email, every text. We'll depose him, his sister, his colleagues. We will subpoena his financials to explore his motives. We will turn over every stone. Tiffany, that's a brutal path. For everyone. It's the path he chose, I said, but the fight was gone from my voice. It was simple fact now. But tell them this. If he publicly drops his suit and retracts his statements about malicious intent and the connection to his father's job, we will drop ours. No money, no NDAs, a clean, mutual walkaway. That's the only offer. It expires in 24 hours. I could almost hear Roberts nod through the phone. I'll convey the terms. The next 24 hours were a silent siege. The media camped outside the Nextech headquarters and my building. Jake's interview on The Current was re-aired endlessly, but now with a new cheerin'. Claims questioned after secret recording surfaces. His lawyer gave a tense press conference calling the recording a selectively edited ambush. But the damage was done. The public's appetite had turned. The story was now a messy, he said. She said, where both parties looked flawed. But his last, vicious words rang louder than any legal spin. On the second day, my assistant, Claire, buzzed me. A Robert Mitchell is here to see you. Again. He says it's important. I felt a jolt. Not Jake. His father. Send him in. Robert looked older, wearier than he had just days before. The drama had etched new lines on his face. He didn't sit. He's taking the deal, Robert said without preamble. His lawyers advised him to. The recording, it's indefensible. He'll drop the suit. He'll issue a statement retracting the claims about your intent regarding me and the job. I nodded, feeling nothing. Good. Robert didn't move. He's not doing it because the lawyers told him to. He's doing it because I told him I'd testify for you if it went to discovery. That got my attention. What? I'd tell the court and the world that you came to me on the beach, that you confessed, that you were terrified of losing him, that you promised to tell him the truth, that your feelings, however misguided, were real. He met my gaze. That would destroy the sociopath narrative for good, and it would destroy whatever's left of my relationship with my son. The sacrifice he was offering was staggering. Why would you do that? He sighed, a heavy, weary sound, because what he's doing isn't justice. It's spite, and because I believed you on that beach. I believe you loved him. It was a stupid, catastrophic way to show it, but it was real. He needs to move on. This scorched earth campaign, it's eating him alive. It's poisoning all of us. Linda's a wreck. Chloe is doubling down, but she's scared. It has to stop. I looked at this man whose life I'd upended twice. First professionally, now personally. I'm sorry, Robert, for all of it. I know, he said quietly. I'm not saying I forgive you for the layoff. That was business. Cold, but business. This was personal, and messy, and human. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. He'll send the retraction tonight. Leave him alone. Tiffany, however you feel, just let him go. I will. He left. The deal was struck. The war was over. Jake's retraction statement was issued.